just so you know.
Oh, thank you.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I will now call the Auburn study session meeting for December 8th, 2025 to order. Tonight's study session meeting will be held both virtually and in person. Rebecca, will you call roll, please?
Deputy Mayor Rakes,
Here.
Councilmember Ammer,
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin, Councilmember Baldwin,
Here.
Councilmember Sturgis,
Here.
Councilmember Clinton Taylor,
Here.
Councilmember Tracy Taylor,
Here.
Councilmember Trout Manuel.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do we have any agenda modifications?
Yes, the planning department has requested that they present ordinance number 6997 and then ordinance number 7006. So they are requesting that items C and D from the agenda items for council discussion be switched tonight.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have any announcements, reports, or presentations?
No, Chair, we do not.
Thank you. I'm going to now turn the meeting over to, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Julie Kruger, Director Kruger, for the Parks Department.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Council, and Mayor. We're here tonight to talk to you about the Auburn Senior Activity Center Meal Program. And I would like to also invite up with me tonight Radine Lozier, the Senior Center Manager, and Megan Mummert, the Recreation Coordinator. And I'll flip through the slides while they chat with you about this program.
Hello.
So my name is Radine Lozier. I am the manager at the Senior Center, and Megan Mummert is our program coordinator who's here. Megan is the staff person responsible for working with Sound Generations, and Sound Generations is who coordinate so Megan helps coordinate the day-to-day on-the-site operations for Meals on Wheels and for the congregate lunch program. In Auburn, we think of the Senior Center as being the community anchor for older adults. We strive to be the community resource available for all older adults in the community, and we try to be available to meet their physical and emotional needs. We provide fitness, volunteerism, lifetime learning, transportation, and healthy meals, as well as services and resources. So today, what we want to talk about is the meal program, that portion of the center. So a little bit of a history lesson. The federal food program, and I often say think of it a little bit like the school lunch program. It is funded by the Older Americans Act, which started in 1965. And it is federal funds to support nutrition for older adults. The way that money is distributed from the federal level is down to state and local agencies. So it gets kind of complicated, but just a really easy way to think about it is that in King County, It's Aging and Disability Services. So they get the funds, they contract with outside agencies to provide programs throughout local communities, which are often housed at a senior center since that's where the seniors are. So that's oftentimes where the programs are held. So Sound Generations is the agency that is contracted by ADS to provide the congregate meals and the Meals on Wheels in the Auburn area. Sound Generations has done Meals on Wheels for probably 50 years. They've had that contract. They had the congregate dining program for years and years and years. And about 15 years ago, the contract was awarded to Catholic Community Services. So then they had it. And then once in 2025, Sound Generations took it over again. So Sound Generations now is the person that offers it. And I guess
Next
we
slide.
can look up there,
Yeah.
So Sound Generations does offer the meals in the senior centers around the county. And they partner with the senior center. And the reason they like to work with senior centers is because while they get paid to do the food and do the food, they know that we're the experts with the seniors. And we're the experts on the ground in our local area to know what is needed by the people in our community. So they partner with us to help that, and then we provide the place for the program and support via on-site staff, volunteers, recreational and social programming, plus access to our resource navigation program. So what do they say? Food brings people together. So we have all these people there, which means they're going to want to eat. So Sound Generations provides the food there. We support them and work with them to make sure that it meets the needs of our community here and follows the standards that we want to see and how we want to see it operated. Meals, once again, for probably 50 years, were Monday through Friday. They have been in Auburn for a very, very long time. In 2004, the funding got cut, and some centers in King County got cut to 2 days, some got cut 3 days. We got cut to 4 days. So
In 2024.
I thought I said
You
24.
said 2004, so just to
I'm
clarify.
sorry. Thank you,
You're
Julie.
welcome.
2024. So we had, went to 4 days. And we also were told that it had to be Friday, which that meant that potentially someone didn't have food Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we are a weekday program. So we kind of put our heads together and tried to think outside the box, and we worked with the Auburn School District, who provides lunch to thousands and thousands of kids every day. They have a culinary program that does catering, and so we decided to offer the Friday lunch through the school district, but then we had to figure out how to pay for that. So we had money from King County Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy that we were able to put towards that, and that is how we're paying for the Friday lunch now. So if you look on that slide, you'll see at the bottom, the grant is covering almost $17,000 for the Friday lunch. And then the senior center budget is covering about another $4,500 to help staff, have a staff person there to help that lunch get put on the table on Fridays. Julie, if you could go back one.
One more?
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the donation. So some people say, you know, there's a free lunch in Auburn, which there is a donation-based lunch. So anybody over age 60 can get that lunch for a suggested $5 donation. The meal itself Sound Generation says it costs $15 when they figure everything in. Auburn's average donation is $1.87. So they are not covering the cost. They get an allotment of meals from Aging and Disability. Sound Generations does fundraising to then pick up some meals for that. And then it's the donations. Well, the donations are not holding up that third, but you can't turn people away either. So we were about $4,500 short this year. We either had to cut 17 days between October and December, or we needed to come up with some money. So we looked at our budget and we looked at the grant funds, and between the two, we were able to absorb that. But talking to Sound Generations for next year, it is potentially going to be the same thing. We just had a meeting. They said you're going to get the same meals you had at the start of the year, which we had last time. Sound Generations is going to fundraise, and then hopefully ADS might bring some more in. And the legislators in Washington allotted $30 million, but none of these agencies yet have said where that is going to, because it's for food and Meals on Wheels. So we're still kind of in this for the next year waiting and seeing. We're trying to do some marketing and promoting of donations so that people that could donate more maybe would, things like that. But that's kind of where we are with the congregate program. We serve about 55 to 70 people every day. If you ever have been at any of our special events, you would know those sell out at about 150 people each. So there are a lot of meals that are being served there, and it provides the nutrition, but more so, which is really important, is the social interaction and just the community. Anybody that's been to the senior center, especially around the lunchtime, I think you would agree that it is a very social place, and there's a very much a community feel of people looking out for each other, helping each other, supporting each other in just day-to-day life. So that's the congregate program. The Meals on Wheels, Megan is going to talk about that.
Hi, everyone. Meals on Wheels is operated and funded by Sound Generations, so same organization, but very separate. They provide ready-to-eat frozen meals, and they have different dietary restrictions. If a client has that, then they can get on a special meal program. They also have it where you can purchase Glucerna or Ensure, because oftentimes these are clients who cannot leave the home, they're homebound. So they make that an option for them to purchase that. Sound Generations determines the eligibility of the clients. So we do not do that at the senior center, we just host. Eligibility for Meals on Wheels is typically over 60 and having difficulty with shopping or cooking. They also work with many of the Medicaid waiver programs, and if they have a private pay option. So a good example for that would be if you're a senior and you live alone and you're going to have hip surgery and you know that you're not going to be able to cook for yourself or whatnot, that might be a good option for you while you're healing. And so those clients pay the full amount for their meal. They have to pay every week. So that's kind of how the eligibility works with that. Our partnership is the same as the lunch program as far as we offer a freezer, we coordinate the volunteers, and we deliver the meals to the clients. They do all the onboarding of the clients, they do all the meal procurement, all of that kind of stuff. So some of the program details, it used to be, Yolanda would remember, she's a longtime Meals on Wheels volunteer for us, but that it used to be 2 meals a day per week, so up to 14 meals. This last year, they cut it to 7 meals per week, and that was so that way they could eliminate their wait list. So less food, but being able to serve more clients. And so it's a good way for them to do that. I thought this was really interesting in preparation for this meeting. Their average donation for Meals on Wheels is 17 cents a meal. So that just tells you how much those people need the food. And some little highlights for Auburn for our site. We're one of the largest sites in King County with 103 active households. That changes weekly. We provide the freezer space. We have a nice big walk-in freezer that is fully dedicated to Meals on Wheels. A lot of senior centers don't have that option to take a whole freezer offline. We have roughly around 26 volunteers that average 150 hours of volunteering per month. So they're really busy. We divide up Auburn into 6 routes to serve all those different clients. And they have 28 meal choices to choose from. They choose, in case you're wondering, they choose their own meals. If they want this same of every meal, they can do that. Or if they want a variety, we don't pick that, choose them. They choose that. And then I'm the Meals on Wheels site coordinator for staffing, and I do about 15 hours a month. Sometimes some months are more. Cheryl will know the downtown cooperative is very active and does our giving campaign for our Meals on Wheels clients. And so that all that work that she does to get those gifts for the clients, we then take it in and package it up and assign it to a person and make sure that it gets delivered even if they don't have a food delivery. So some months are busier than others for Meals on Wheels, but that's a little recap of that.
And Megan, your volunteers are delivering those meals
Correct.
on a Friday?
They
go out on a Friday?
They deliver Fridays. We did add a Thursday route because some people have dialysis, which is typically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 days a week. So we did add a Thursday route. If they miss a delivery, they're not home, they're not feeling well, they don't answer the door, then we try to re-deliver on Monday. Either a volunteer or myself will try to get in contact with them and re-deliver.
The one thing, we do want to ask if you have any questions, but I also failed to mention that the congregate dining program in Auburn is also the largest in King County. So the Meals on Wheels and the program in Little Old Auburn is the biggest in the county. So there is a big need, and I think not to toot our own horns, but I think because we are the host site, I think that that also helps with the amount of people that are being served and the whole environment that they come into and how they feel coming to get the meals or calling for Meals on Wheels or having someone go out and deliver, those types of things.
And so I think Radine mentioned earlier about 55 to 60 daily that Monday through Thursday, unless it's a special event. But they come from all over, so they don't have to just live in Auburn to come to our program, and we can't turn them away. We have to feed them based on the federal funding, and so they, lots of people from Kent and Federal Way, and we have people coming from other neighboring cities that are coming to our program.
And I don't know if it's good or bad, but you'll get someone say, oh my gosh, I live in so-and-so, but this food is way better here, or the people are nicer here, or we like it more here. And it is tricky because they are federal funds and they are for whoever, but as the money gets lower, we have had to look more at we can only serve X amount of meals and turn people away.
Yes.
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. I apologize.
That's okay. Really quick, just before, I just wanted to add one comment. Are you guys finished with the presentation? Okay, before we open it for questions, I did just want to, Julie shared with us in our special focus area meeting earlier that something just that all of us need to be aware of as council is that because it is federally funded, just with what's happening in the economy over the next year or two, we just to be aware that if for some reason those funds were to continue getting cut, the impacts that it would have because we don't have that city funding already decked for it. So to make sure that we're conscious of that. So opening it up for questions, Councilmember Trout-Manuel.
I don't have a question, I just got a comment. You guys do an amazing job. That's why everybody comes over there. The atmosphere, everyone that I meet, they're not from here. They go, you guys make them feel like this is their home. They wish their centers would be like ours, and all the activities that you guys put on. You guys do a fabulous job. So thank you for all your hard work and everything you do and welcoming people and making them feel like they're part of our
Thank
city.
you. Thank you very much. We do work really hard at trying to do that, and I'm very proud of the staff and the support that we get from the city. I mean, we will go to other centers around the state and they won't have that support, or they won't have the infrastructure even just within their city to get printing done, or to call the city attorney to figure out this legality of this contract or that. They don't have that, and we are so fortunate because it really allows us the ability to spend the time with the people and to program and do things for the people here in Auburn. And we are definitely known around the state, and I think it's all good. I hear good things, but we do hear that our center is known.
Questions? Councilmember Taylor? Oh, thank you. Deputy Mayor Briggs?
Thank you. I have to echo, you guys are fabulous down there, and the seniors get so excited. So I will be seeing you guys Wednesday, and thank you for all you do, because it's very important to them.
Thank you.
Councilmember Taylor?
Thank you.
Sure.
This is probably a dumb question, but I mean, I guess I'm kind of concerned because of what the climate would look like when next year rolls around with the federal funding and whatnot. Are we exploring sponsorships with some of the bigger corporations like BECU or Amazon? I mean, now's the time to start kind of like maybe prodding a little bit more maybe in that space?
I can jump in and then I'll let Radine answer, but for right now, so Sound Generations, which has the contract to feed, it's their job to fundraise and find those sponsors. It's not the city, so we're just the host site. But I know they look out for those opportunities to some degree.
Yeah, and that was what I was, that's what we were
okay.
gonna say is, yeah, it's one of those things where we are the host site, but we don't have the power or the control to do those things. We try to give suggestions. We try to tell them, oh, well, there's these places or that might be interested. And Sound Generations has been really open to that and does a good job at checking that out, because they have not contracted for the congregate dining for 15 years and now they're back. They did not realize how what do they call it? Overproducing or overperforming. They did not. Realize how much we were overperforming. That's how they say it in the meetings. That we overperform.
One thing I would mention is that to be a congregate dining program, it has specific requirements. So that would be a factor in going out and essentially saying, going on our own and finding that.
Can you, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, Councilmember Taylor.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of those parameters, or?
I don't know them enough, other than there's certain guidelines to be able to receive the federal funds. We don't hold the contract. We'd have to apply.
Are you talking about donating?
talking about
She's about getting
sponsorships, like,
donations.
yeah,
Sponsorships,
yeah.
yes. That would be, they would they could make donations to Sound Generations at our site, and then we would give it, but I think it would go to Sound Generations total, and then they would allocate what they did with it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Backus?
I want to highlight, first of all, the amazing work that's being done at the Senior Center that continues to be done there. But I don't want to overlook and Radine, you touched on it, but I don't want to overlook the partnership that we have with the Auburn School District for so many things. You've heard recently about the after school, right? And the Auburn buses bringing the kids to the rec. And when Radine and I were talking, 2 years ago, about what are we going to do because they're cutting a day of food, and you know that that just can't be the case. You know that we can't allow that to happen, and the creative ways of which the team thought about what could be done, and then the enthusiastic yes from the school district in order to make sure that our seniors are fed 5 days a week is just something to truly be proud of in the city of Auburn, the partnership and the ability to work so closely for the good of everyone in our community. So well done.
They came, I mean, they were very quick to respond and just say, yeah, there's no reason we can't do that. We're making thousands of meals. To make 55 more, we can do it. And it has definitely filled a gap for those people that really do rely on every day. Now, not everyone is in that situation where they can't afford food or a meal. There's other things that are important, the socialization, the camaraderie, the getting together to fight depression by not being home by yourself all the time, all of that. But for those people that have kind of the dual problem or the dual, you know, they need that plus they don't have money for food. It has really been able to fill that gap on those days.
Sorry.
I mean,
just have
Deputy Mayor.
one question. So for your lunch meal program, do they have to make reservations or is it just a drop-in? So do you know how many people are coming?
It's a guessing game. It's a drop-in. But when the cook looks at the calendar for the month and looks at like last month and now, oh, the Rio Rockers are here on Wednesday, we know that means there'll be 70, and then Wednesday they're not there, they'll be down to 50. So they kind of do it that way. There are some days when we do have to send people away, but it's not super common. The cook does a great job at stretching or trying to figure it out. So people come in at about 11:30 to be seated, but they start signing up as soon as we open at 8. They just, when they come in on the computer, they just push a button that they want to eat lunch, and then that takes their spot, saves a spot for them.
And special events is a ticket ahead of time.
I took it.
Yeah, oh, yes, thank you, Megan. So those special events where we sometimes get, if we do one seating, it's 150. For Thanksgiving and Christmas, we do 2 seatings, so it's 300. And those you really do have to get ahead of time and get people committed because you've got to get enough volunteers, enough food, and all of those things. So those ones, usually once a month, there's a special event that's a ticketed meal.
I've got a comment and then I'll pause to see any other questions and then I've got a question after that as well. But so it is like if you're the community, just to be aware of just such a pride point for us because if you're ever looking for a place to just go and volunteer so you can feel so good and so happy and have the best energy walking out of there and making just the most wonderful senior friends, it's like go volunteer at the senior center. But it is a great opportunity too for some of our local businesses or team where if they're looking for a team building, I know our Auburn Rotary is going to be volunteering, just volunteered for Thanksgiving, but now for Christmas. And so on those special events, how would a community member or if a business wanted to do a group team to come volunteer or an association, how would they sign up to volunteer for some of those special events where you really need those volunteers?
So some of those we reach out to them. It is quite a tradition for the Thanksgiving and the Christmas that the service clubs do that.
Awesome.
And so we reach out to them. Some of the other ones.
The Auburn police officers.
The Auburn police officers, yes. They have been also helping, if it's not on a Friday, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's not on a Friday. So they would just reach out to Megan or myself, and then we could try to hook them up.
Very cool. Very cool. And Councilmember Trotman?
I just want to stress the Meals on Wheels. That is such a great program. And not only do we get joy of going and delivering these to the people are so excited and they're waiting at the door for you to come in. And they count on you to come on that day. And if you don't come, they want to know where you're at and why is somebody else there. And you become like good friends. Some of them are old enough to be my grandma and grandpa, and they're just adorable. And I hope we continue that program because it's very much needed.
Yeah, the Meals on Wheels, Megan does a great job with the volunteers on there and sets them up on routes so they do get to know the people that they go and visit and things like that. And we will get calls saying, I just know on Friday, someone, Bob is gonna pull up and say hi and smile at me. And that's the only person I see all week. So it is very, very helpful to those people that cannot get out of their house.
I've got another question. So on the just the cost of one for Meals on Wheels, one for the congregate lunches. So you said it's a ask for $5 donation if they're 60 and over, and then it's a required $10 if they're below 60. Of the 55 to 60 average, because I'm just looking at the average donations, $1.87. How many are typically in a day under 60? Just to get an idea of how much of the $10 is coming in.
Not what?
Less than 5.
Okay, cool.
And
I was curious on
oftentimes
that.
they're a caregiver, which means that they are in a different bucket, which they are donation.
Okay, cool. And then similarly on Meals on Wheels, so of the 103 households, how many of those households are the 50 to 60 that come for lunch during the day? 2? Okay.
They are not regular senior center
They're not the same
participants.
people? Okay,
Not
because I'm
the same
curious, because
people.
knowing they went down to 7 meals, they're only getting 1 meal a day, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so they're not supplementing that with coming to the senior center then? These are folks that really just can't get out of their house? Okay, okay. I was curious on that.
But we
Thank
do
you.
talk to them about that, and we
Okay.
do offer them other resources
Cool.
if they have expressed that is a hardship for them.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Backus.
And the food bank also does home deliveries every week.
Awesome.
And so it could be that they're supplementing their Meals on Wheels with the Auburn Food Bank,
Very
providing
cool.
them with deliveries.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
What was happening was the waiting list was getting to be like 3 and 4 months long.
Wow.
And if you were really a homebound person that had no way to get food, 4 months would mean that you couldn't live.
Right.
So they were, how can we get this waiting list down? Because there is a finite amount that comes from the feds for the Meals on Wheels and for the lunch program.
Well, what another special example of the partnership in, just the city of Auburn, whether it's the school district, the food bank, and, all of you working together to make it happen. That's amazing. So, any other questions or comments from council?
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank
Yeah.
you for all you do.
You
It's a
are
wonderful
welcome.
update, so thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Back to you.
Thank you. We're gonna move to council discussion items. And we're going to do ordinance number 6997 with Director Crum. And then we're gonna follow that with 7006 with Director Crum.
I'm going to pass it off to Alexandria Teague, our Planning Services Manager.
Okay. Evening, let me just, set up a little bit. Let's see. Okay, oops. Okay, good evening, Council, Deputy Mayor, and Mayor. Alexandria Teague, the Planning Services Manager in the Department of Community Development. Today, I finally have the 2024 Auburn Downtown Sub-Area Plan and the Planned Action Ordinance. So my presentation will cover both ordinances. The Downtown Sub-Area Plan is under ordinance number 6997, which starts on page 53 of your packet, and the Planned Action Ordinance is under ordinance number 7006 and starts on page 657. Most of that is the plan. Okay, so let me start with the Sub-Area Plan. Okay, so as you know, the most recent Sub-Area Plan was adopted in 2001, and it provided direction for the downtown plan over the last 20 years. It set a vision for the downtown, but that plan has reached the end of its life, and so now we have to plan for the next 20 years. We prepared a new sub-area plan and a new planned action ordinance for the downtown, which does represent a full rethinking of the downtown area that corresponds to changing conditions, characteristics, community vision, and so on. All right, in terms of regional context, this plan is designed to, 1, satisfy the requirements for the state's GMA to plan for forecasted growth, and 2, support the goals of Puget Sound Regional Council's Vision 2050 and Transportation 2050, which are the regional transportation plan, regional planning documents. Puget Sound Regional Council has designated the downtown of one of 29 locations throughout our region that have key business, governmental, cultural facilities, and are planning for growth. So we're one of 29 regional growth areas. Vision 2050 and Transportation 2050, they provide the framework for planning for forecasted growth. And there are minimum requirements that a regional growth center must meet to maintain their status as a regional growth center. King and Pierce County must also comply with Growth Management Act, and one of the compliance measures is to establish countywide planning policies and growth allocations. You've heard us say many times our growth targets by 2044 is 19,520 new jobs and 12,112 new housing units by 2044. Now, in terms of reviewing agencies, the Washington State Department of Commerce and Puget Sound Regional Council are required to review the draft sub-area plan. Commerce reviews it since it's incorporated by reference, or will be incorporated by reference in our comprehensive plan. And since this is the sub-area plan for our regional growth center, Puget Sound will review and hopefully certify the plan. Puget Sound Regional Council has a draft of the plan now, and they're reviewing for certification, but they know that until we've completed our local process, they obviously can't adopt it. And so once council adopts the plan, we will provide them with the adopted plan. And finally, since we received a transportation-oriented development grant, it's TODI, I don't remember what the I stands for, but we received that grant from Commerce in 2022. They will receive a copy as the adopted plan, and that will fulfill our grant obligations. Now, I mentioned, so to accommodate our future growth, under the last periodic update that was completed in 2024, Auburn developed growth centers, essentially. This is the growth strategy of our comprehensive plan. This is to direct growth into our 9 growth centers. I've circled the downtown plan, or downtown area on the map. Part of this strategy for the downtown, as well as the other growth centers, involves increasing density, increasing building heights, and permitting more housing types. This is why the alternative for the downtown plan with the highest growth for the environmental impact statement was selected, as it's most in line with the comprehensive plan. Downtown, especially as a growth center, is intended to absorb the bulk of the future growth targets. So it's expected maybe 17% of the new jobs and less than half of the new housing units could be provided in the downtown area. I want to go over some of the plan features. I've gone over some of these before, so I won't go over everything on this screen, but the first is the North Downtown. It includes, this downtown plan includes expansion of the downtown regional boundary north of 3rd Street and 4th Street Northeast. So the city can accommodate additional growth, new opportunities for commercial residential development, while aligning with the regional transportation investments, namely the Rapid Rye I-Line. And then Main Street. Main Street corridor is unique in Auburn. It's an asset to the downtown. We do have programs like the facade improvement program that help fund businesses and to update their facades, as well as strong design standards. Staff, we are currently in the process of working with a consultant now to update our design standards for downtown. We actually have our open house working on scheduling for February 12th for those downtown design standards. Design standards are important because they really dictate the look and feel of basically the streetscape. And then, again, in those design standards, they really make a difference in the revitalization of the area. On this screen, I want to talk about the vacant storefront policies. This was definitely feedback we heard from Planning Commission. So we added several vacant storefront policies. This is to help us in the future develop regulations and programs related to storefronts. So policies such as one that says to ensure vibrant streetscapes, storefronts that remain unoccupied for 6 months for all ground floor windows that face sidewalks and streets, they have to basically jazz up or consider some window display. So you're not walking along the street for a vacant storefront. And then another thing was displacement risks. Commerce provided a comment that we needed more anti-displacement. So we added policies like allowing for more than just single-family residents to rebuild in a total loss. So extending that to middle housing, and we will look at extending that to other uses such as commercial uses to really, again, prevent anti-displacement or help with anti-displacement. Yeah, we don't want to prevent anti-displacement. Anyways, moving on to Arts and Culture Hub. Again, the sub-areas plan speaks to an arts and cultures hub. There's new opportunities, the Postmark Center, the new theater, will support revitalization efforts in the Main Street corridor. There isn't a full-fledged arts district in the plan, but there's plan policies that do support arts in the downtown. If in the future we need to amend the plan to create a full-blown arts district, we can. But that was not provided for in the plan. This is a snapshot of public engagement. It has been a 3-year process. There has been anywhere from online surveys to interviews with business communities, a range of stakeholders. We've had a project page since 2022. If you Google Auburn Downtown Plan, it'll be close to the top entry. In addition to what's on the slide, in February, we had a discussion at the Look Ahead with with Council. In August, we had our first discussion with Planning Commission, as well as the study session. On the 19th, we went to the Downtown Auburn Cooperative. And then on September, I think it was 11th, the Assistant Director went to the BIA. And then October 25th, we had another discussion with Planning Commission. And then December 2025th, we had the public hearing in which a subsequent notice was sent to all the property owners. But all the detail of the outreach is provided for in the downtown plan. Right, I want to move on to the map amendment changes just briefly. Let's see, so this slide depicts the existing and proposed land use. A reminder that the land use is our future map. It's how land is currently planned to be used or how it's to be used in the future. So it's more like a future map. And land use is sorted into broader categories like residential, commercial, industrial. It's much broader than the zoning districts. So as you can see on the left in the existing, there's much more of a mix of land use designation, which makes sense because that area here was not included in the original downtown plan. There are areas that are in the proposed on the right. Well, let me just say that all of the downtown is proposed to be a designated downtown urban center. There are a few green areas here. These are essentially school sites and the Auburn Pioneer Elementary. These larger school sites were part of the Auburn School District's Capital Facilities Plan, which was just adopted by Council on Monday. So they're to remain public, quasi-public. The land use designation of these is not to be changed. And then this is the existing, so this is zoning map amendment. On the left is the existing zoning within the downtown. As you can see, there's a mix of a lot more zones. And then on the proposed, there's still quite a few colors. It's the bright colors in the bright red boundary. These zoning districts in the proposed map will implement the downtown urban center land use designation. There's many more districts instead of just one downtown urban center zoning district. That is to recognize not all of the downtown needs the same treatment, not all of downtown is the same. I'll talk more about the districts on the next slide, but that is essentially the purpose of having the multitude of downtown urban center zoning districts rather than just one. And I want to note with this zoning map amendment and the land use map amendment that the city is not taking anyone's property. We're not requiring anybody to change or modify their property. The majority of public feedback that we got has been about this concern about being a non-conforming use. A non-conforming use, very briefly, is a use that was allowed in a zone, but now with the zone change, it's not allowed. We do a plan to, after hearing this concern, we do a plan to review, evaluate, and update the city's non-conforming standards in the future. The idea is essentially to find ways to strengthen and provide more flexibility in the non-conforming code or standards for legal non-conforming uses and businesses. Legal non-conforming is not the same as just being non-conforming. Legal non-conforming means you have all your permits and bona fides in place and business license and things of that nature. The anti-displacement policies I mentioned previously is a good example of an update to updating our non-conforming standards.
And we're done.
Sorry. This keyboard is really sensitive, apparently. Okay. Let me move on to the districts I mentioned. So the first up is the DUC core in light and dark magenta. This most closely aligns to the original downtown urban center zoning district with an expansion along Auburn Way North here. So core 75 means basically buildings 75 feet tall. Core 125 basically means buildings up to 125 feet tall. Building form will look like mid-rise to high-rise buildings, offices, and parking structures. Allowed uses will include retail, offices, commercial, bars, theaters, things of that nature. And I mentioned we are working on design standards especially so that Main Street has that strong storefront feel as you're walking down Main Street. And then with options for more landscape frontages with buildings not on Main Street or for residential buildings. Oh, goodness. Okay. Second is the Health and Wellness District in dark purple in the center. It replaces the existing residential office zone. The intent of this district is to build off the synergies and development from existing medical campuses. The max height is to be 125 feet, and the form will look like offices, medical buildings, mid to high-rise apartments, and of course parking structures. But it will allow for more than just medical offices. It will allow for multifamily, retail, of that nature. And then third is the neighborhood residential zoning district. These are all the orange areas highlighted. It is applied to the existing predominantly residential areas in the downtown. So there are quite a few pockets in the downtown that have existing homes. And existing homes are, as we know, often the most affordable homes. This district was created in a way to preserve those existing neighborhoods. But the max height will be 45 feet, which is enough for a 4-story home or building. Building form will look like middle housing, detached houses, small apartments, and it will allow for some small retail like a corner store or small professional offices. Okay. And then fourth up is the Flex Residential Zoning District. This is this greenish area here. This is a kind of a unique area in downtown. So is this district. There's a mix right now of commercial, industrial, and residential uses, and that's essentially what the Flex Residential District is. The max height will be about 45 feet. It will look like housing as well as some small workshops. It will allow for in housing, but also small professional offices, small artisan workshops, and some mixed use. Yes, and then finally, while they don't have their own slide, the areas that have popped up on the screen are the light industrial, which is light blue, the light commercial, which is this light pink, and then heavy commercial, dark pink, will also be DUC zoning districts. These will allow for the same uses as their non-DUC counterparts, but they'll not just be subject to forthcoming design standards. And this is Planning Commission's recommendation Planning Commission's recommendation, as well as the staff report, and their materials are included in your packet as Exhibit B. Okay, so I'm going to move into now the Planned Action Ordinance, which is 7006. All right, a Planned Action Ordinance is a strategy for a specific geographic area, I'm going to read it, whose impacts have been addressed through an environmental impact statement before individual projects are proposed. So it's like doing the work before a project, for an individual project applies. The downtown EIS was prepared in anticipation that the city would and could pursue a planned action. The 2024 Downtown Plan and Planned Action EIS, they identify impacts and mitigation measures associated with planned development in the downtown. It is a commonly used tool. Fife has one for their downtown. Puyallup has one for their downtown. Bothell also has one for their downtown. The idea is the planned action will help streamline and expedite land use review by relying on the downtown sub-area plan, the planned action EIS, and associated mitigation measures. So subsequent SEPA will not be required as long as the project qualifies as a planned action. So the image on the left, this is Exhibit A of Ordinance 7006. It's the planned action area. It's essentially all of the downtown. The image on the right is a snippet of the mitigation measures document. It's Exhibit B of 7006. And the purpose of this document is to contain all of the specific measures or actions needed to mitigate impacts resulting from increased density or development. This is the thing. We actually don't hardly have a lot of unmitigated impacts as part of the EIS. So this document it's a compilation of all of the requirements or standards that would generally be applicable. So there's nothing unique in this document in terms of mitigation, is what I'm trying to say. This is generally the list of qualifying land uses that were considered under the environmental impact statement. Anything from single family, middle housing, all the way up to multimodal transportation improvements. And this are the planned action thresholds. So this is the level of jobs and housing contemplated by the EIS. It constitutes the limit or threshold development that was evaluated under the EIS. It's also the projection that I mentioned when discussing the sub-area plan. In terms of transportation thresholds, a project, they'll also have to comply with the level of service, concurrency, and impact fees. There's only really one intersection in the downtown that does not meet the minimum LOS intersection standards, and this is C Street Northwest and 3rd Street Northwest, but that's already, the city's already identified that mitigation needed, or identified that mitigation is needed for that intersection. And then, of course, all planned action projects, they have to meet the city's transportation concurrency requirements, the level of service, thresholds according to the comprehensive transportation plan and the engineering design standards. And then, of course, to mitigate transportation-related impacts, all planned action ordinances have to pay impact fees with adjustments made for applicable credits and so on. So, in terms of to complete the planned action process, both the planned action ordinance, the planned action area map, and mitigation measures must be adopted. Prior to adoption, City Council must hold a public hearing on the findings within Section 1 of Ordinance 7006. This public hearing has been scheduled for December 15th. And that is all I have. I think that was a lot of information. But
Council, any questions? Councilmember Sturgis.
Question for you. So if I'm a homeowner in the residential area that's being rezoned, and let's say I didn't have an opportunity to go to some of the public engagement venues or events, how would I be finding out about it now that my home or my property is going to be rezoned? And where would I go to understand the impacts that that's going to have to me as a homeowner?
We can update the downtown urban center project page. It's on Speak Up Auburn. We can put the notice there or the ordinance that was adopted. We don't typically send out, whenever we do a rezone or even with a comprehensive plan update, we don't typically send out a notification to everyone that it's been completed unless they were like a party of record. So everyone that came to the city council or planning commission public hearing, we could send them notices, but just anybody citywide or within the downtown, we don't typically send a follow-up notice, but we have been updating the downtown project page on Speak Up Auburn, and we can update that page with this.
Councilmember Tracy Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my question sits along the lines of when you had gone and done this presentation to the stakeholders here in downtown, what was the initial response? What was their comments, and are they aligned with what was presented?
So the initial stakeholder conversation that happened back in 2022, I was not part of that conversation. That essentially I was not part of the project. And then I went on maternity leave. So I can say we have had follow-up discussions with the downtown businesses, or presentation with the businesses at the Downtown Urban Center, at the BIA. There are, with any zoning change, people that are confused. But it's either they're already non-conforming because of the Downtown Urban Center zone, or their use is something that is, or they will be non-conforming, or, which is why we want to evaluate our non-conforming standards, or it doesn't really impact them because their use is still allowed. So I think people generally fall in those three buckets.
Okay.
Councilmember Baldwin, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that you were talking about with regards to the non-conforming use was that it looked like you were going to maybe update what those non-conforming standards would be or what that process would be. And I was curious where that would line up with the timeline for adoption of this ordinance, because I believe it's on the December 15th agenda.
It would not, it's a subsequent action. I'm bringing the 2026 work program for planning in the January 26th meeting. I can't remember where we had it in the work program, if it's a quarter one or a quarter two, but it involves us, community development, evaluating our standards, and then taking that through planning commission, and then bringing that to council. So it takes time to craft those and make sure that we've crafted them so that we are providing the flexibility for things like expansion, for things like rebuild. But understand that when a use is non-conforming, it means that the city has generally gone in a new direction. And so having that use continue, providing the non-conforming standards so that, the non-conforming, where I'm going is the non-conforming standards is a non-conforming use is something that the direction has changed. For example, we don't have any use in our code anymore for oil tank or oil distribution or oil. And I'm bringing that up as an example because that was discussed at length at the public hearing for Planning Commission. And yet the use still exists downtown. So affording the ability to do expansions, to manage their business as needed, but understanding that that use is not a use allowed in the city, so, or especially not the new use in the downtown. So the city essentially has gone a different direction in terms of our super industrial pass from the downtown. So this long way of answering your question, I don't remember if it's a quarter one or a quarter two action, but it is something that the director has identified for us to get started on early next year.
This is Steve Sturza, Assistant Director of Community Development. Right now on our work plan, it's set to come to City Council study session in May of 2026.
Thank you.
Councilmember Manuel.
Yes, I have gotten several phone calls from people that received the letters that you mailed out, and they were a little confused about it. I told them I didn't know anything about it yet, so I would inquire. Meanwhile, I got a phone call from a business owner also. They wanted to know how is the rezoning going to affect their business, and this is a car lot. That the expansion went all the way up to their property. I told them I would contact you folks to find out, and I'm glad that we've got all this. They said they went to the planning meeting, and they left just as confused when they were there. They asked for mapping you had all these maps up there. They asked if they could get some of them. They said they did not receive any information. There was no handouts. So they left very, confused and wanting to know what is actually going to happen.
That was probably Waylon Scarf. I remember he spoke at the meeting, and yes, his lot is proposed to now from heavy commercial to downtown urban center core 75. I don't recall him asking for me to provide him a map or any sort of documentation, but I can definitely follow up with him.
Okay.
A lot of businesses, I wrote down, I have all the details of everyone that was in attendance at the meeting, and I actually looked up all of their addresses, and they were all on the mailing list for the open house, and no one came to the open house. No businesses came to the open house.
Okay.
No residents came to the open house. So, this has been, there has been information out there. It is unfortunate that people hear about it towards the end, but at least, I since then I've followed up with, I can't remember her name, talking to her about, what it means for her house, and it means nothing. So, but at least they're getting engaged finally. And the next step, this is the plan. The next step is to work on the code update to 1829. That's the zoning development standards related to this plan. There will be opportunities for people to again get involved in that code update, but historically we don't have a lot of engagement. But I mentioned we have an open house scheduled for February 12th. Yeah.
The homeowners that were concerned are the people that are right across from the hospital parking lot in that B area.
Okay.
And so I will go ahead and I'll let them know about, you'll probably mail them out another letter. But I'll go back and talk with them about the next meeting.
Yes, thank you. And planning commission meetings. We bring this forward to planning commission, and planning commission almost never has anybody in attendance. But keep checking, tell them keep checking planning commission. If they can email me, I'll give them updates of when it's moving forward. But yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Council?
Councilmember Baldwin.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think maybe the one thing that sometimes gets lost in these presentations and I don't know if you want to speak to it, is I think on that slide, looking at the planned action thresholds, right? And so the whole point of going through the exercise of expanding our downtown, or pardon me, our downtown district is really density, right? I think the name of the game here is looking at how we have set up our zoning to support density and those thresholds that are established for us through the requirements at varying levels that we saw at the beginning. And so it's really about trying to create that urban core. And I think at the end of the day, when we're looking at changes that can enable almost 6,000 housing units, another 12,000 people and residents, and potentially another, almost 3,000 jobs, I think that there's a lot of benefit that can come with that. And it definitely means, continuing to see changes in Auburn and trying to bring in, more opportunities for people to come live here and for businesses to thrive here, have customers here. And so I think when we're looking at this type of work, if we take a step back in kind of that overview, I think it's all about getting that density and building that opportunity. So I just want to say, thank you to your team for the 3 years of work that you've put in and continuing to, strive for engagement. And I hope you have better turnout for the February 12th event. And just thank you, I guess.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So you kind of mentioned it, but I just wanted to clarify. So is the only way that property owners are notified is through the mail? Based on, because we have their address, so we mail them a notice? Or is there any other communication that we do?
So for a notice of public hearing, the code is very prescriptive. You have to send it to us. We send all of our notice to the Seattle Times, published. No one ever looks at that. We have to mail to all property owners, and then you have to post it in 2 general locations. We typically post it here and at City Hall. For projects, we can go above and beyond. For the downtown open house, we mail to everybody, just like a mailing, not property owners, but just a mailing to everybody in that downtown area. So that number was staggering. It was literally everybody in this downtown. And then there's other kind of add-on things you could do, like a project website, or I just had a meeting with communications. They can do social media. I don't know if we did social media. I don't think we did social media for this open house, but there's other things that we can do that we are looking to explore. But by code, you mail to property owners, put it in the newspaper, and then post it at a building, and that's what's required.
Nope. Oh.
Councilmember Lisa Sturgis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So follow-up question, or my last question is, so if I'm a property owner and I'm being rezoned to non-conforming, are we allowed to rezone them to non-conforming if we don't have the definition outlined of what non-conforming is? Or to me, it feels like when the review and the looking at providing clarity of what the non-conforming means would need to be done before we change their classification, or no?
No, we have non-conforming standards in place now.
Okay.
And those dictate change of ownership, which you could do, expansion, how you enlarge the building, if there's like a total loss, how it has to be rebuilt. There are thresholds, though, for things like expansion, and if in a total loss, who is able to rebuild just like for like? That is only that is a special privilege for single family residences. So there are things we can do in our non-conforming standards to provide more relief for other types of uses that have, especially for the rebuild, that haven't been considered, like middle housing or commercial, or perhaps increase the threshold for expansion. I think it's like, I have the code here. Sorry, I actually brought it. think it's like it says 25%. So look at increasing that threshold. Things like damage, repair, abatement. So taking a look at our non-conforming standards, and we have them in place, but perhaps providing more relief for uses that are now non-conforming in the downtown. But it wouldn't apply to just downtown. When we change the non-conforming chapter, that applies to non-conforming uses everywhere. So we want to be careful is the word about how we change that. How we update it, what we propose, because again, it will apply citywide. And typically when something becomes non-conforming, it's often that the direction that the city has envisioned has changed.
Any other questions, council? Thank you. Yeah, that was a long and a lot of information.
Thank you so much.
So next we have ordinance number 6998 with Director Crum.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, we skipped over item A, ordinance number 6993.
Oh,
Did we want to address that first?
okay, let's do that one first.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jamie.
I'm sorry.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and Council. I have some just administrative changes that we need to make to Chapter 3.53 of our city code. It's for our business and occupation tax. It's actually changes that are being made to the model ordinance. And so it's not any changes that are necessarily being initiated by the city or any changes in how our tax code, the taxability of items in Auburn based on the direction we want to go, it is being precipitated by the state. So a little bit of background history. We have the authority through RCW to implement a B&O tax in the city, but we at a minimum have to have the model ordinance as a guideline in our code that we follow. And so what the model ordinance does is its goal is to have consistency throughout all cities in the state of Washington that implement a B&O tax code. So it says you can have your B&O tax code more expansive than the model ordinance, but it at least has to have the minimum provisions of the model ordinance, and it has to be consistent with what other cities have in their B&O code. So in order for us to continue having a B&O tax, we have to make sure if there's ever any changes to this model ordinance, we also have to change our code, at least the sections of the code that have the model ordinance provisions. The reason why the model ordinance is changing is with SB 5814, which was with the kind of the expansion of items that are now being taxable from a sales tax standpoint in the state of Washington. There was a lot of definitions that were added to what does retail sale or sale at retail mean. And so AWC wants to make sure that the model ordinances that cities use for a B&O tax standpoint are also consistent with the sales tax language provisions at the state level. And these have to be in effect by January 1, which is why we're here in December. The changes in our B&O code really are just expanding the definitions of retail at sale. It really expands specifically on information technology services, security services, temporary staffing services, advertising services, and repair services for tangible personal property. And it's making identifying these as sales at retail versus just services in general. Taxing implication for B&O tax in the city of Auburn, that they're still subject to B&O tax. It just depends on which B&O tax rate they could potentially be paying based on whether or not they are classified now as a retail item versus a services item. Another small change in the model ordinances, model ordinance that AWC had just decided to update is the non-reporting threshold for businesses. So it used to be if you are generating gross revenue or gross receipts of $2,000 or less, you fall into a non-reporting category, you don't need to report. They are upping that threshold to $4,000. So we're just updating our code for businesses that generate $4,000 or less of revenue a year, they can be placed on a non-reporting status. They don't have to file a tax return. They just need to let us know that they are generating less than $4,000 a year, and they will be considered compliant as far as reporting and paying business and occupation tax. A little bit of a note that I wanted to make for council, because you will be seeing the implications of SB 5814 coming towards you again with our first budget amendment of 2026, and that is there are more things that are now subject to sales tax in the state of Washington, which is a benefit to us because we receive that 0.95% of every sales tax dollar paid. So we'll be getting a slight bump in sales tax revenue, but that's going to be more than made up for in the amount of services that the city pays for. And so our cost of doing service is actually going to increase pretty significantly for all of those services that I mentioned earlier: IT services, security services, temporary staffing, advertising, repair services for tangible goods. Live demonstrations and presentations is also kind of a niche category that's captured. So all of those types of contracted services that we currently pay for are now sales taxable. So our costs will increase, and the department directors are working on compiling the types of contracts that we have that are impacted by that sales tax. And we will be bringing a budget amendment request to the council probably in about March or April. That's the first budget amendment of the year. Nothing that doesn't relate to these code changes at all, but just kind of the other implications of these changes that the legislature made earlier this year. For the details, on page 30 and 31 of your council packet is really where all the red line version of the code go into place. It's just a lot of just the definition section has been really added to and enhanced. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, council? Thank you, Jamie.
That's a bummer, guys. Thank you.
Okay, we will get back to ordinance number 6998 with Director Crowe.
We're going to pass it off to Owen Good, Planner 2, and again, Alexandria T, Planning Services Manager.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Rakes, and City Council. My name is Owen Good, Planner 2 from the Community Development Department, and I will be presenting on Ordinance 6998, Co-Living Housing Text Amendment, shown on page 610 of the agenda packet. The purpose of this text amendment is to comply with the revised Code of Washington, the RCW, which requires cities to adopt code that allows for co-living housing. Co-living housing is a denser housing typology similar to studio apartments, comprised of sleeping units where kitchen facilities and sometimes bathrooms as well are shared in common with other residents. The zoning text amendment requires the Planning Commission hold a hearing to review the updates and forward a recommendation to City Council. Staff presented to the Planning Commission last week on December 2nd and are presenting the same proposal to you tonight. On the screen here is a floor plan of an example of co-living housing, which shows each individual sleeping unit. They have kitchenettes on this one, as well as their own bathroom facilities, but they also have a common area with a shared kitchen. So the intended effect of this text amendment is to increase the availability of affordable housing and different housing typologies. This will allow the new use to be permissible in the downtown urban center, residential moderate, residential high, mixed use, heavy commercial, and light industrial zones. On the screen, we have examples of what co-living housing could look like these are actual examples provided in the co-living housing guidance document in the agenda packet. So, they could be buildings that are converted to allow for residential units or just new builds. So what would this look like in the code? For density, a sleeping unit would equate to 0.25 dwelling units. For parking spaces, each sleeping unit would be required to provide 0.25 parking spaces. Short-term rentals would not be permitted in sleeping units, so no rental agreements for less than 30 days. And then per the co-living housing guidance, they're not supposed to have a bathroom and a kitchen. So where is this allowed to be built? Co-living housing is allowed in all zones, excuse me, that allow for a minimum of 6 multifamily units. This includes the downtown urban center, high-density residential, R3 and R4 zones, mixed-use, R&M and C2 zones, and heavy commercial and light industrial zones, so the C2 and M1. Why is the state requiring cities to allow this? Co-living housing is one of the many tools that the state is requiring that cities make available as a housing typology for development in various zones to combat the current housing crisis. This model is intended to make more housing available to residents at different affordability levels. We recognize that co-living housing is not a single solution to the housing crisis in the state of Washington. And so that's why it's not permissible in zones that allow for less than 6 multifamily dwelling units. The image on the screen here is an image designed by Opticos Design, a planning consulting firm which actually coined the term missing middle housing. And this image is shown as an example that co-living housing would be provided on the higher end of the spectrum in the townhouse, multiplex, and mid-rise range. So the Planning Commission recommendation from last week is to recommend approval of the draft text amendments to Title 18 of the Auburn City Code, which allows co-living housing as a permissible use within the downtown urban center, R3, R4, RNM, C2, CAG, and M1 zones. Thank you. I can answer any questions as well.
Any questions, Council? Councilmember Tracy Taylor.
Hey, Deputy Mayor. Just for clarification, when on the effective text amendment with the no short-term rental, that would mean Airbnb, Verbos, and whatnot too, correct?
Yes, but it's not necessarily limited to who's providing the rental. It's the amount of time.
Got it.
So anything less than 30 days would be considered a short-term rental. Mm-hmm. And so any rental agreement for less than 30 days would not be permitted in these units.
I guess I would say in some instances, like with traveling nurses and whatnot, they can rent a short-term situation with an Airbnb and something similar to this, so that would eliminate that. Am I understanding that correctly?
If it were proposed to be less than 30 days.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And there was a language in the co-living housing guidance provided by the state, which states that the intent of the code is to not have short-term rentals.
Because part of the intent is people buying up these really affordable units and then making money off of them, selling them as Airbnbs, or even to traveling nurses to do a lot of good, but these are going to be the idea is that they're really cost effective for people to purchase and live in.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ramirez.
In the same slide, no bathroom and kitchen, that means either one.
You can't have so in the co-living housing guidance, it states that you can't have a full kitchen and a bathroom in each unit.
Okay.
So on the floor plan that you saw, that was like a kitchenette. So they're just smaller. It might be a better model for developers to provide at least your own sanitary facilities in the units, but each floor needs to have a shared kitchen in common with the other residents. And that's what was kind of shown on that floor plan as well.
Any other questions, council? Councilmember Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. How does that impact clean and sober housing?
That would fall under a different definition, right?
That's a different use, different type of use. This is, we have different types of congregate housing, but this is different. This is not that. We have, I don't remember the use table, but this co-living housing is separate from clean and sober housing, separate from Oxford housing and things of that nature.
Okay.
Councilmember Troutman,
Can that be used as, say my house had some fire, issues, and I need to move into something for the time that my house is being fixed for 30 days? Could that be used for that and the insurance covers that?
I don't know.
The reason why I ask, because in another state, this just happened to an individual that I know. Their house got flooded due to the big storm that they had over there, and they had to vacate the home, and the insurance put them in a Airbnb for 30 days until their house is being fixed. So I was just wondering if we have something similar to that.
I think it would be, like I said, based on the length of stay. If it's 31 days, then I suppose that would work. But it's really trying to discourage those short-term rentals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So is this, I just wanna make sure I'm interpreting this right. So is this like for a developer or for someone who wants to have an investment property? This would be rental units that's a new type of, instead of an ADU or buying a duplex, I could build a apartment building that is co-living now, so I could get more people in there renting, but it has to meet these standards in order to get zoned as co-living. Or, so it's an investment property, or developers would be building these? Or is it stuff we already have established that you're just
So yeah, there are. So it's really it's just another housing model to create
development?
More affordable, and they're not necessarily affordable by deed restriction, but affordable by design because they're smaller. They share kitchens. So it's it's a common model in larger cities in Washington, but there are models that exist here in Auburn. But really what's happening is the state of Washington is now requiring that cities allow this type of housing. Not that it's currently prohibited, but this keeps us in compliance with the RCW that requires that, and also allows us to regulate it into the zones that it should be located within.
Divine Court is also co-living housing, a portion of it.
Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you. So, could co-living housing does it have to have an my door that the room I sleep in, it could have the bathroom and maybe a mini kitchenette, but it can't have both full. My door that I go in and out of and lock, so I'm renting my unit, does it have to have an external door that I go out now to the hallway and go down to a full community kitchen? Or can it be like a 3-bedroom apartment that I rent out each room, they have a locked door inside the apartment, and now they all share the same kitchen and bathroom?
That's a good question. I think in most cases we considered this really at least the door from
External.
Like a studio to the hallway absolutely would be individually rented. I guess someone could propose a model where a 3-bedroom apartment is laid out the same way. There are co-living housing models that are not as common for single-family homes. Mm-hmm. This is not part of that code update. But if it's allowed like that in single-family homes, I suppose it could be allowed in the same way in a 3-bedroom apartment, as long as each bedroom was also individually locked. And then I suppose the apartment itself would need to have its own door and lock as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are we modeling our code off of other cities? Say, for instance, I think it's Huntington Beach, California has something similar to this in their code. Are we, taking from what other cities do?
We're taking this directly from the RCW.
Okay.
Um,
But are we looking into what others are doing to maybe emulate that, or?
That's not what we did for this time right now. The RCW did have language that said that, at least currently, I believe the RCW said that you couldn't have like room dimensional standards in your code for co-living housing. And I'm not sure if other cities in California might be proposing something like that. Other cities, at least in our region, are still working on getting their code update done for this. So it's still very new,
Sure.
at least for Washington. We hadn't considered looking at California. That's something we can do moving forward. But at least if there's any room dimensional standards as part of that code, we wouldn't be able to do that right now because of the way the RCW is phrased.
And the RCW is pretty prescriptive.
Okay.
It's, so it's, if we were to look at another jurisdiction outside of the state of Washington, it would be to require, for example, require even less parking than 0.25. But it's pretty prescriptive at what it should look like here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda is the 2026 legislation priorities. I'm just going to read a little thing. The city of Auburn, like most communities, faces a number of issues that impact our community. What is becoming very clear, we cannot treat each issue as separate. Instead, the city is committed to continue efforts that look at solving our challenges in a comprehensive manner. Our belief is that the following problems can only be solved with an interconnected strategy for success. Is there any discussion on these items?
Deputy Mayor, if I might, I'm just going to do a small presentation.
Okay, perfect.
To explain these in the absence of a government affairs policy person who, if you know of anyone, the job rec went out last week. Councilmember Baldwin, I think, has a question, but just wanted to go over these, and we sent these out. I sent these to all of you last week to make sure that you had an opportunity to review in advance of the packets going out, and that if you had any questions, comments, or ideas, that you could share them in advance so that we could get staff input on them. This 2026 draft state legislative priorities document is the product of rolling over some of the 2025 priorities, as well as emerging issues that our directors and their teams worked on to ensure that we had a robust document for you to review tonight and to ask questions. As you know, this is much later in the year than I like to have this out for discussion at council and hopefully for approval at next week's council meeting. Nevertheless, we have it now, and happy to go over these one by one if you would like, or if you have a different way that you would like to do this, just based on questions or concerns over any of the items that are on the list. So I'll leave that up to you, Deputy Mayor, on how you would like to handle that.
I think if just anybody has items that they can ask you questions on.
Okay.
Is there any questions for Mayor Backus? Councilmember Baldwin.
Thank you. So looking over the document that had been shared out, I've got a few different items. So just starting with the section for public safety. The first one is rather a quick question, which is there was an item on there that made a reference to additional funding sources for officer recruitment and retention, possibly through councilmanic public safety sales tax, impact fees, or direct funding from the state. Given that we are, in the midst of, adding that sales tax for public safety, do we still need that additional item?
So which one, I'm looking under public safety, which one of the items, Councilmember Baldwin, is it?
Yeah, it's the second issue, second request language.
Additional funding sources. So we can tighten this one up most likely, but there are concerns in this legislative session upcoming about how the funding can be used. And it is a bit restrictive. And also the language, as you heard in the presentation when we discussed the public safety sales tax, every one of the jurisdictions that had submitted for early approval was declined.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they met the letter of the law, CJTC was asking them to go above and beyond what the law had intended. And so we're asking for more clarity on those items. So it really does kind of align with the first one, work with cities to make technical fixes to those bills in which language is vague, conflicting, or confusing. So they align with each other. And again, this is a draft, so we can definitely look at combining those two to make sure that the language is appropriate.
Yeah, if we can tighten that up, that would be awesome, mainly because I don't want a legislator to be like, well, we just gave you the power, and dismiss it out of hand without having better clarity around that. So if there's a more, as you mentioned, a more specific ask that we can do there. And then should I continue, or do you want to, Deputy Mayor Riggs, do you want to open the floor first?
Any questions, council? Let's take a couple questions and then we'll get back. Any questions, Councilman Roden?
To answer the question, because the bill, the one we just approved, it came from the legislative, so there is possibility they will remove it. So I think we should keep it, so just so they know that we really want it. We don't want any change, because they just put it and they have short time, legislative time, so I think we should keep it. We shouldn't make any change in our request. Maybe change, that's my opinion.
And so this is, within issue number 2, there are 2 requests. Additional funding for officer wellness within police agencies, which I think is very necessary. I think in Auburn, our police department does an amazing job working with Angel Agondo as our officer wellness program manager. Is that the designer? Thank you. And there are always going to be the asks of additional funding for recruitment, retention. While it does say councilmanic public safety sales tax, that section could be removed or refined, and impact fees or direct funding from the state. While this year asking for direct funding from the state is probably a moot point, it doesn't mean that you remove it, because while it may not be something that is attainable in this year, it could be attainable next year, and you want to make sure, because usually we know we don't get things in the first year that we ask for them. We have to wait and continue so that the legislators see this over and over. If we get something on the first take, that is an amazing accomplishment. So it's getting the legislators familiar with the language and reminding them every time we come back, we're still asking for this.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that we take away anything with regards to funding for officer wellness. It was more about cleaning up the councilmanic public safety sales tax language specifically.
Yeah.
Within that public safety section, I did want to bring up the last issue in that under that category, which was the flock camera usage. The current language reads, request, which is work to reject any bill or action that puts extensive restrictions on the use of flock or other ALPR equipment. Further restrictions would make it harder for law enforcement to locate criminals, missing or vulnerable people, and locating stolen vehicles. On that, given what we've seen in the past year, with the misuse of data from our flock cameras, I have issues with this one because I think that they are incredibly useful devices, but we have a responsibility to manage the data wisely. And so I would either look for a reword of that section or removal of that section, because I've at least seen in the news that that data can be used by stalkers in domestic violence situations. And I would expect that there should be restrictions there. And likewise, I think there should be able to be restrictions to prevent ICE from using that when they're not following due process in how they are snatching people off the streets. So, to be able to have these tools means that we have to be responsible in how we use them. And so I'm open to the state legislature providing better direction and guidance and potential restrictions. So I don't know that I agree with that request as written currently, given my points provided.
So Councilmember Baldwin, if in that second sentence, further restrictions for law enforcement would make it harder for law enforcement to locate criminals, missing vulnerable people, and locating stolen vehicles, would that suffice for your concern?
Could you repeat that once more?
Further restrictions for law enforcement would make it harder for law enforcement to locate criminals, missing vulnerable people, and locating stolen vehicles. The intent here is to lock the information down, and Auburn Police Department and Assistant Chief Betts, I believe, did a great job of explaining that in the presentation on flock cameras about how there was a back way of entering into the flock system that has been locked down. The concern at the state level is because there has been some draft legislation and the rumors abound that state legislators don't like the use of flock cameras at all and would move to remove the opportunity for local jurisdictions to have them. We have found, as you know from presentations throughout time, I believe Chief Collier has even told of the kidnapping case where the woman was found not at the U.S.-Mexican border, but at the southern Mexican border. And without that, most likely that woman would have never been located. So it's a matter of making sure that law enforcement can still utilize the data while ensuring that law enforcement is handling things in an appropriate manner. There has also been talk of locking down the flock cameras so that only Washington state law enforcement agencies can utilize the data. If that occurs, because we know that we have the Keep Washington working in place, that does not allow for our local law enforcement to work with ICE on civil immigration issues. They are allowed, and in fact do work with them on criminal immigration issues. But if it were locked down to only Washington state, the reciprocal issues in other states may abound, right? Other states would say, well, if we can't see your data, you're not going to see ours. And the effectiveness of these cameras is lost on anything but intrastate. And we need to be able to utilize them interstate as well. So if we include something about restrictions for law enforcement would not be beneficial, would that work for your concern?
If we can clarify that it's municipal law enforcement, state or municipal.
Well, we can't work with immigration. They do not have access to our system. And I believe most of the cities in the state, and especially any that were part of the University of Washington study, have locked down their information. In fact, a few cities have turned off their flock cameras, which I won't speak for another city, but I don't think that that is the way that we would want to proceed in Auburn.
I know they've been an incredibly useful tool for us. And being able to have and access and use that data has made a huge difference, as we saw in the stats that Assistant Chief Betts had reported out to us. But as I said before, I'm still open to hearing what those restrictions might look like and how we could do that to make sure that not only are we still able to address crime, but that we are in fact protecting our residents, all of our residents, from the data being used in inappropriate ways. And I think the statement to say that if people locked it down just to Washington State means that other states would, no longer share with us is speculative. I don't know is that we've had evidence that that would necessarily be the case. And so, living in a world of potential what ifs is not necessarily the best circumstance for figuring out what that right path is going to be. Because as you said, these have been incredibly useful. They've helped us with tracking criminals. They've helped us with, recovering that individual who'd been kidnapped. But that being said, I do think we have a responsibility for how that data is managed and protected. So, if we want to maybe see if there's a better way to work this offline, I think that would be good.
Councilmember Sturgis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just trying to think of putting myself in the shoes of a family or someone who needs the police department to use the flock cameras in order to save or protect someone in my family. And so I would, want the police to have full access to every camera in the United States that could help save my loved one. And so how do we, I agree with the less restrictions for law enforcement. I think our state has parameters as far as the immigration challenges. But is there language we could use as far as protecting the data from public records request? Or because just to try to, I guess the element that we don't want to handcuff our police officers from being able to do their work. And we've seen the impact on our communities when we do these pendulum swings because of the hot topic. And then it ends up making us lose law enforcement or, because they don't have the tools to do their jobs. So we want to advocate that they have this really great tool that they depend on and love using to keep us safe. But how do we keep, domestic violence, from those public records? So I guess I would be completely supportive of law enforcement having less restrictions and figuring out safe restrictions for public records request, et cetera.
Any other questions, Council? Councilmember Tracy Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm looking at issue number 3, the ongoing public safety issues related to illegal drug use. So essentially, our request is to expand our SOTA, maybe? Would school zones make that a part of our SOTA? Is that what we're looking at with this language, or? I'm trying to understand that. We have a really good SOTA ordinance already. Would this just give us an opportunity to expand that?
Assistant Chief Betts, do you have any, so they did away with the drug-free school zones, correct? So we're just asking for those to be reinstated because our SOTA areas don't necessarily include all schools, correct?
I would have to confirm that looking at the map, but I believe that's correct.
So this would be in addition to our SOTA areas, is to ensure that schools are off limits.
Okay.
Because when we did our SOTA ordinance, it was areas of known drug use, prolific known drug use.
You could debate the fact that that does happen within school zones too, though.
Right, but when we identified our SOTA areas, it did not necessarily include every school.
Okay.
So, and judges are very particular about not making a SOTA area too broad.
Got it.
And so the benefit of having the schools already excluded
Okay.
Would be beneficial to law enforcement and to our communities as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, council? Councilmember Sturgis.
Just a quick comment. With this being my first time with legislative issues, I just want to say a huge thank you to you and the staff for putting together this these topics, because I have gone to the Hill before, but that was in banking, and so being able to have it outlined so well and with subject matter experts that are leading in these areas and knowing what we need to go advocate and champion for. So thank you. It was a really great tool to pre-plan and prepare for tonight's meeting and then for next month.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Thank you. The other one I wanted to ask about was under our labor and workforce impact section. I believe on the third page, there is an issue noted with the Washington paid family and medical leave, which indicates redundant costs, limited oversight, and operational impacts. I hadn't heard anything leading up to that surfacing here on the legislative agenda. So I was hoping that you could go into more detail on that, because I know, that's something that I would think a lot of families would be very happy to keep and have available to them. And so, tell me about how this became problematic.
Yes, Councilmember Baldwin. So we have had discussions with legislators because when this went into effect, we didn't believe it should be impacting organizations, businesses, municipalities that already had paid family leave or paid medical leave. This was intended, and we have heard from legislators, well, we didn't intend for it to negatively impact, like, I'm just going to use Auburn. Because as it says in here, you can stack federal FMLA with state PFML, and that does result in extended absences for conditions that are not medically serious, creating significant staffing gaps and operational disruptions in essential public services. So we also do not know how much PFML, and Ingrid, please, because I see you leaning forward. I don't believe we can fully identify how much time an individual has, and there are no audits in place right now, so there is a significant amount of fraud, not saying that in the city of Auburn, but statewide there is significant fraud going on with this benefit.
Yeah, so I'm going to speak for Director Martinson because I am not the HR director. But my understanding of this is that when somebody claims PFML of the state, they report that directly to the state. They report their non-working hours directly to the state. We as an employer cannot get that information. So they can also at the same time be reporting that they are working for us and getting FMLA leave from us, and therefore potentially double dipping. Again, not saying that any of our staff are doing that, but that's the fear because there is no audit process in the state process. So there are some improvements that need to be made to the process if it stays and continues to apply to government employees. But as Mayor said, in a government setting, right now that stacking of FML and PFML, and we have a very generous leave bank for our staff, it is impacting to our operations when that leave goes from being a 3-month period to being a 6 to 9 month period. That is detrimental to our ability to continue operating our facilities and our systems.
It was initially intended for employees who did not have any type of paid leave available to them. So like small business owners may not have the financial ability to provide paid leave. The state intended to provide those employees with the ability to have paid time off. And as I said, we have heard, we didn't intend to do this to employers who already provide paid time off. Their language, I will say it, their language was sloppy. And so it does apply to municipalities and other companies who are already providing very generous leave. And so the hope would be that we could clean this up to where those who are providing generous benefits of paid time off could go back to just having their paid time off, and the state would focus on those employees who are working for an employer who do not provide it. But if they are going to maintain it for both, then we ask that there be a better way to audit that and more information provided to the employers so there is no double dipping, if you will.
Any other questions, Council? Councilmember Sturgis.
I just, so with this, because this one is a pain point for just coming from the employer standpoint. I know, we get limited resources or FTE to staff our business regardless of what type of business we're in. And so you love that they're getting this medical leave and that's great, but then the ones who do take advantage of that and now they're gone for 6 months and we can't run our business, or, customers are upset because they're waiting in lines longer and or can't get their services or calls returned. And so, if is the main effort to try to make sure it does solve that to where if for businesses who don't have it, then we're providing it. Because I guess I would just, the likelihood of them approving an audit and verification process, because that would be a whole new huge expense, right? So I don't know, I'd be concerned of that being effective because and then it's just, gosh, it's so hard on the business owner or the municipality. So I would love for us to really champion the, either or. If someone already provides it, then you don't get it.
Right.
But are we able to or no?
Well, we're leaving it open for legislators to have an option, but also, if you notice in the request, support long-term solvency.
Yeah.
I believe, wasn't Candace saying that there is concern that it is very underfunded at this point in time?
Yes, that is also one of the issues with how underfunded, because you have so many that are going through that. And again, it's a great benefit for those employees that don't have paid time off or don't have that family medical leave process like government agencies do. So it's great for them, but I don't think that the state accounted for what that leave requirement was going to be as folks started using that. And so they are looking at some fairly significant increases to the rates going forward in order to cover the costs of the program.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilmember Clinton Taylor? Oh, Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm struggling with how I'm hearing representation on what's been articulated here as an issue on our legislative priorities, because for Federal Medical Leave Act, while that is a protected type of leave, that's not something that, to my understanding, has any type of pay that's associated with it. So if we have employees that are using their accrued leave while taking FMLA, that's them using something that they have at that point in time earned. Likewise, for the state's paid family medical leave, employees are contributing into that as a benefit for the work that they do. And we, put in a contribution as well as an employer. And so I guess my concerns are, unless I've got better information or data showing that, it doesn't seem like a double dip if someone is in fact taking those benefits that are earned and paid for.
I think it's.
And I don't know if stacking is happening or if that, again, is speculation. I do think having strong audit is always important. I do think having, making sure that it's a program that is able to be sustainable from a funding standpoint is certainly important. But the way that I'm reading this, and it's a big section, right? Seems to be more about sort of inciting fear as opposed to, I don't know that the information is presented well from how I read it, how I'm understanding it. So I guess I just still have concerns with how this is being presented and rendered here. I also would question, who gets to determine what's medically serious? We seem to have enough struggles in the healthcare field, in healthcare, when you've got an insurance adjuster deciding what's medically necessary. I don't know that that's a business that we want to be in ourselves.
So in that first paragraph, you'll see support, not medically serious, so most of these things do require a physician's note or application that is filled out. More of the concern for us, yes, we are paying into this, but we are also providing very generous paid time off. So some of this definitely has to do with the extended periods of time that an employee can be out, while, as Councilmember Sturgis was saying, the work and Director Galb was saying, the work is not being covered or is making it very difficult for us to cover. We have had several employees who have taken extended, and we are talking, I believe in one case, 9 months. There were a couple of 6-month time periods. And again, we have no visibility of how many hours, how it's being handled. And yes, they can put in for their PFML and also put in for their paid time off here in the city. And we provide 2 separate banks, right? We have one for the vacation time and one for sick leave. The PFML is just used as a paid time off supposedly for medical purposes.
Correct, as I understand it, so basically when somebody is on paid family medical leave, they are supposed to put no hours on our documentation and not get paid here. And then they submit forms to the state to get paid through the state. And depending upon where they're at in that process, there's a limit to how much they can get through that. So it doesn't necessarily cover all costs or fully replace somebody's paid status, depending upon where they are at in income level.
Any other questions, council? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions and the clarifications. We will try and I am hoping that we can cut down on some of the language in here, but we will bring it back for you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, council, the next thing on our agenda is new tonight is the committee reports. I am going to turn it over to Councilmember Sturgis to do the one for municipal as the assistant chair. Or
Thank
vice
you.
chair, I guess.
Thank you,
should say.
Deputy Mayor and Chair of Municipal Services Special Focus Area. So we met earlier today. Our regularly scheduled meeting was a couple weeks back, but we were at NLC, and so or the conference in Salt Lake, so we rescheduled. So typically they happen a couple weeks prior to the study session that it's coming to. But we met with our emergency manager, Cole Pitts. He actually was not present today because he was working with some of the flooding concerns out in the community. But Director Kruger, she had given us the update, and we had a great dialogue around the senior food programs, which she brought to tonight's study session for the senior center. And then Director Martinson gave us a great update on kind of just a quick overview of what's happening over the next few months with the judicial appointment. And so she boosted LinkedIn, trying to really get the message out there that we're recruiting recently, and then they're going to be reviewing first stages of applicants over the next couple weeks. The goal is to have applicants identified, mayor to find who mayor is wants to appoint, and then bring potentially to our February 2nd council meeting for confirmation by council. So that's the tentative timeline, but we talked through that and more information to come. And then Chief Collier gave us some updates on how our hiring updates. So we're at 123 officers are currently staffed. And then Director Kruger updated us on parks projects, one the cemetery, and some that will be coming to future focus areas. So there's 2 capital projects for parks that really are going to come through Public Works and Economic Development, but she wanted us to have kind of some high-level overview. So, and that's, Chair Rakes did talk and ask and got some clarification for the downtown park closures and when those will be reopened for folks. So it does look like the theater is going to open before the park is finished, and there'll be some closures there through the summer. But Director Kruger will keep us updated along the way so that we've got timelines. That was our special focus area this month.
Thank you. Councilmember Tracy Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I am the chair for the Economic Community Development and Public Works team. And along with Vice Chair Baldwin, we met with the directors Galb, Kruger, and Crum for the monthly special focus area meeting. The directors provided us with summaries on various items anticipated to come before council in the next 17 months, or in the next several months. There were 17 items on the page. Among the items that were discussed, there were 3 agenda items that took action back on Monday, or last Monday, 3 items that were presented tonight at study session, and then of course other items of note included the plan discussions for 2026, including several code updates and pending agreements with King County. Thank you.
Councilmember Clinton Taylor, do you have any report?
I will bring that back to the chair.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Are you looking for the finance update?
Yes.
It's been a bit since our last meeting, so I don't have anything for tonight, but I will say our next special focus area meeting is going to be next Wednesday. So we'll have an update after that. Everything ahead of, I think from our last session, it was just getting ready for that last budget revision that we had and passed. So
thank you. Councilmember Martin.
Our special focus area is scheduled for tomorrow.
I'm the chair of that.
For tomorrow at 4, I tried to ask if we have anything because technically there is nothing in the agenda for the community wellness coming in. So the request was I checked with my sent email. I don't think there is anything. I'm not sure of the rules who will cancel the meeting, the chair or the vice chair. So
Councilmember Manuel.
We have not met. They had 2 meetings, and one I missed. The second one was canceled, and we have a meeting tomorrow. And Councilwoman Hanana Mayer would like to cancel it. I don't want to cancel it because it's the last meeting, and I would like to bring something back to council on Monday, the 15th.
For clarification, we have not canceled any meeting. I have been attend all the meeting, the chair been missing the meeting, so that's
No.
different. So that's why I
That's
like,
fine.
especially I have another meeting after, either way, I'll be here. So that was the request. Second, I attend the LAF board meeting, so Mayor, I wanna tell you, I'm still interested to be served in the LAF board. Thank you.
That's fine.
Any other thing to add, Councilmember
Sorry,
Sturgis?
just one thing I meant to mention was we did have some really great discussion with our directors that we meet with in municipal services today around how our special focus area is a little different than, because I was, with me learning, I'm like, should we be rolling up our sleeves and diving into presentations, et cetera? So we had some really great dialogue just to clarify that for our municipal services, the parks and PD and emergency services, we're not typically bringing ordinances to the special focus areas. So it's more kind of sharing out at a high level overview the great programs that happen within the city, the great things the police are doing, whether it's from training or wellness, et cetera. So a lot of the information our special focus area will share isn't typically going to have a lot to review prior because it's informational. So that was really great learning for me, and I just wanted to make sure to clarify for that as well.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Just a question for council. Melissa had sent out, I think, either a doodle poll or a request for you to identify if you're available for the 2 dates for the budget retreat. That's either February
Or March 5th and
February, yeah, I was just gonna look at the specific dates, March 5th or 6th or February, where are we here? 19th and 20th. So if you have not responded to her, please do that tomorrow. She had asked for it, I think, a week or 10 days ago, and it is really critical because, as you can imagine, trying to make sure that all of council members are available, all of the directors and the mayor are available, as well as the staff, and then identifying a facility and a facilitator. So I'm just going to ask that when Melissa sends an email to you, that you respond on the same day. I believe it is in your council rules of procedure that it's within 24 hours. So I'm just going to ask that you adhere to your council rules of procedure and make sure that you are returning emails in a timely manner so that the work of the city can continue on.
Thank you. Anything else, council? We are adjourned.